Deep within the crystalline mountains of Nalthoria, an expedition team from the Galactic Consortium uncovered an artifact unlike any other. Professor Tech, a six-limbed xenoarchaeologist with pale blue skin, carefully brushed away the last fragments of mineral sediment from what appeared to be a humanoid suit of armor. It gleamed with an iridescent sheen, despite being buried for what dating techniques suggested was over 50,000 years. Remarkable preservation, Tech noted, his four eyes blinking in sequence. No signs of degradation whatsoever. The armor was streamlined yet powerful in appearance, with smooth contours that suggested both flexibility and strength. Strange symbols, etched along its surface, pulsed with a faint blue glow whenever touched. Mira, the team's technology specialist with scaled skin and compound eyes, ran her scanner over the artifact. "I'm getting readings that don't make sense, Professor. The material composition keeps shifting. It's as if the molecular structure is reconfiguring itself continuously." The consortium's excavation had begun after ancient texts referred to the skin of the destroyers, a legendary weapon system that had allegedly brought ruin to the Vorkai Imperium, once the most technologically advanced civilization in the known galaxy. The texts claimed the armor granted its wearer immeasurable power, but chose its bearers with mysterious criteria. When Tech attempted to lift the helmet portion, a surge of energy knocked him backward. Several team members rushed to help him up. "I'm fine," he assured them, though his limbs trembled visibly. "But did you see that? It rejected my touch." Over the next 3 days, every member of the multi-species expedition attempted to interact with the armor. The reptilian Drakari received painful shocks. The gaseous Ven couldn't even approach within a meter before being forcefully repelled. The crystalline Lithosians cracked upon contact. Even the highly adaptable morphs found their cellular structure destabilized when attempting to flow over the armor's surface. "The legends may have some merit," Tech concluded during the evening briefing. "It appears to be selecting, or rather rejecting, based on species." Commander Lox, a hulking amphibian with webbed hands, folded his arms across his chest. "The consortium will want this transported to central research regardless. If it's truly a weapon of the caliber described in the texts, we can't leave it here." "With respect, Commander," Mira interjected, "we don't even know how to safely move it. It reacts violently to everyone who touches it." As the team debated, their sensors detected an unregistered vessel entering Nalthorian atmosphere. The ship wasn't of consortium design, nor of any recognized member species. Smaller than standard transports, it moved with unusual speed and precision. "Security protocols," barked Commander Lox. "Secure the artifact and prepare defensive positions." But before the team could complete their preparations, a sole figure emerged from the vessel after it landed less than a kilometer from their excavation. Sight. Through magnification, they could see it walked on 2 legs and had a puzzlingly simple biological structure compared to most known sentients. "What is that?" whispered Tech, adjusting his vision enhancers. Mira's scanner beeped urgently. "Unknown species, Professor. Not in any consortium database." The figure approached steadily, seemingly unarmed, covered by a simple environmental suit with a transparent faceplate, revealing a strangely familiar bipedal form. The armor began to pulse more brightly, its symbols now glowing intensely, as if awakening from a long slumber. Navigator Reed hadn't intended to land on Nalthoria. His small scout vessel had suffered damage while evading a meteor shower in a nearby system, forcing him to seek the nearest habitable planet for repairs. Earth Central Command would be displeased by this unauthorized contact with a consortium-controlled the world. Humanity's first diplomatic overtures to the galactic community were still in delicate preliminary stages. Reed approached the alien encampment cautiously. His universal translator was only partially effective with consortium languages, but he recognized the signs of a scientific expedition. Perhaps they could be reasoned with. As he drew closer, he noticed their evident agitation. Several creatures, of varied physiologies, moved protectively around what appeared to be an excavation site. "I come in peace," Reed called out, the translator attempting to convert his words into something intelligible. "My ship is damaged. I seek temporary shelter and repair materials. The aliens conferred among themselves, their movements suggesting surprise and uncertainty. Finally, the tallest among them, an amphibian-like being, stepped forward. "Human," the creature said, its translation device producing a halting approximation of Reed's language. "You are far from authorized space." Reed nodded. "An emergency detour. I mean, no intrusion on consortium territory." The blue-skinned alien with multiple limbs studied Reed with obvious fascination. "You have never been documented by our biological archives. Your species is unknown to us. We're relatively new to interstellar travel," Reed explained. "Our representatives have only recently made contact with your diplomatic corps." A sudden commotion from the excavation site interrupted their exchange. A brilliant blue light erupted from the pit, pulsing rhythmically. The aliens backed away, their postures indicating alarm. "What's happening?" Reed asked. "The artifact," the blue alien replied. "It's never reacted this way before." Driven by curiosity, Reed stepped toward the light source. The consortium members made no move to stop him, instead watching with scientific interest. As he approached the edge of the pit, Reed saw what appeared to be a humanoid suit of armor hovering slightly above the ground, surrounded by a corona of blue energy. "Fascinating," he murmured. "What is it?" "A relic of immense power," the blue alien, who had introduced himself as Professor Tech, explained. "We've been unable to interact with it. It rejects our touch with considerable force." Reed felt an inexplicable pull toward the artifact. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward the pit. Tech and Commander Lox exchanged glances. "We cannot guarantee your safety," Lox warned. "Understood," Reed replied, and carefully descended into the excavation. As he approached the floating armor, the blue glow intensified. The symbols etched into its surface began to shift and flow like liquid. Reed extended his hand cautiously. Instead of the violent rejection the aliens had experienced, the armor's energy field parted before him like a curtain. The consortium team gasped collectively. Reed's fingers made contact with the chest plate, and the entire armor shuddered, as if awakening. A voice, neither male nor female, neither loud nor soft, spoke directly into his mind. Genetic compatibility confirmed. Physiological parameters within acceptable range. Initial synchronization commencing. The armor disassembled itself, component pieces hovering around Reed like satellites. "What's happening?" he called out, fighting the instinct to retreat. "It's accepting you," Tech responded, his voice filled with awe. "After rejecting every species we've presented, it's accepting you." The armor began to reassemble itself around Reed's environmental suit, each piece sliding into perfect position, molding to his form as if custom-made. The weight he expected never materialized. Instead, he felt lighter, stronger. "This is impossible," Commander Lox muttered. "The most advanced weapon system ever discovered, and it chooses an unknown species from beyond consortium space." My armor settled around Reed's body with perfect precision, each segment locking into place with microscopic clicks. For a moment, darkness enveloped him as the helmet sealed. Then his vision exploded with light and information. Holographic displays materialized before his eyes, text and symbols in an unknown language scrolling rapidly. "Can you understand me?" Reed asked tentatively. "Language analysis complete. Translating to match host neural patterns," the armor's voice responded in his mind. "I am Nexus, combat and survival system of the Primarch Legion." Reed took an experimental step, expecting clumsiness, but finding instead that the armor moved as if it were his own skin. "Why me? Why did you reject the others?" "Genetic compatibility required. Your species matches parameters set by my creators." Outside the armor, the consortium scientists watched in astonishment as Reed moved with increasing confidence, the armor's surface rippling with waves of blue energy. "Human," Professor Tech called out. "Are you communicating with it?" Reed nodded, the helmet mimicking his movement. "It calls itself Nexus, says it was made by something called the Primarch Legion." Mira's compound eyes widened. "The Primarchs are myths," Supposedly the precursors to all humanoid life in the galaxy, they disappeared eons ago. Not myths, Reed replied, relaying Nexus's thoughts. They were flesh and blood, and they created this armor as a weapon against something they called the Void Eaters. Commander Lox stepped forward cautiously. Human, this artifact is the property of the Galactic Consortium. We must insist you disengage from it immediately. Reed attempted to comply, but the armor remained firmly attached. I don't think that's possible, Commander. Nexus says the bonding process has begun. Bonding? Mira asked. Neural interface establishing, Reed explained, feeling strange sensations throughout his body as the armor mapped his nervous system. It's integrating with my physiology. Suddenly, alarms blared from the consortium's equipment. Mira rushed to check the readings. Multiple objects entering atmosphere. Configuration matches no known design. The sky darkened as 7 obsidian vessels, each shaped like elongated diamonds, descended through the clouds. They moved with impossible precision, arranging themselves in a perfect circle around the excavation site. Void vessels detected, Nexus announced in Reed's mind. Threat assessment maximum, defensive protocols activated. What are void vessels? Reed asked aloud, causing the consortium members to look at him in confusion. The enemy that destroyed my creators, Nexus replied. They have hibernated, waiting for the armor to be found. You have reawakened me, and they have sensed it. The largest of the black ships opened like a blooming flower, disgorging hundreds of writhing, shadow-like entities that seemed to absorb the light around them. Evacuation protocols, Commander Lox ordered. All personnel to transport vessels, immediately. The consortium teams scrambled to obey, but the shadow creatures moved with frightening speed, cutting off their escape routes. Professor Tech was the first to fall, engulfed by 3 of the entities. His body contorted, then collapsed into dust. No! Reed shouted, instinctively raising his arm. The armor responded, his forearm reconfiguring into a weapon he didn't recognize. Energy pulsed, and a beam of blinding white light erupted from his palm, cutting through a dozen shadow creatures. Neural synchronization at 40%, Nexus informed him. Limited weapons functionality available. Reed stood protectively before the remaining consortium members. Get to your ships, I'll hold them off. You don't understand what you're facing, Mira protested. No, Reed agreed, but this armor does. As more shadow entities converged on their position. Reed felt the armor guiding his movements, enhancing his reflexes. He fought with abilities he never knew he possessed, wielding weapons beyond human technology. For every shadow he destroyed, 2 more appeared. Yet he continued fighting, buying time for the aliens who had been his adversaries moments ago. They're targeting you specifically, Nexus warned. The Void desires this armor above all else. Understanding bloomed in Reed's mind. He wasn't chosen randomly. Something in human DNA resonated with this ancient technology. Perhaps humans were descendants of these mythical primarchs, carrying genetic memories of a war fought before recorded history. As the remaining consortium scientists fled toward their vessel, Commander Lox hesitated, watching the human fight against impossible odds. The armor transformed around the human's body, weapons manifesting and dissolving as needed. Despite its obvious power, Lox could see the battle was unwinnable. The shadow entities were simply too numerous. Against all protocol and personal judgment, Lox turned back. Commander, Mira called from the ship's ramp, we must depart immediately. Send an emergency transmission to Consortium headquarters, Lox ordered. Code Omega, request all available battlecruisers. I'm going back for the human. Reed was surrounded, fighting in a rapidly shrinking circle as the shadow entities pressed closer. Each time he destroyed one, the dissipating darkness seemed to feed the others, making them grow larger and more substantial. Neural synchronization at 62%, Nexus reported. Accessing secondary weapon systems. The armor's chest plate slid open, revealing a pulsing core of energy. A spherical barrier expanded outward, temporarily pushing back the shadow entities. Reed gasped for breath in the momentary reprieve. You cannot hope to control us, the entity hissed, its form destabilizing further. In not control, Reed corrected, the master armor pulsing with energy. Coexist! With a final surge of power, Reed completed the transformation. The temple shuddered, then stabilized as new energy patterns established themselves. Throughout the system, the void entities paused, sensing the fundamental change in their existence. What have you done? Thorn asked, watching as the shadowy entity before them shifted from threatening darkness to something more translucent, more defined. Created balance, Reed explained, his consciousness expanded by the master armor's capabilities. The void eaters were never meant to consume. They were meant to transform, to bridge dimensions. The Primarch's fear corrupted the original connection. The entity examined its changed form. We are limited now. You are focused, Reed countered. Given purpose beyond consumption. A true symbiosis between dimensions. Outside, the battle had ceased. Consortium and human forces watched in amazement as the Void Fleet transformed. Obsidian vessels becoming translucent, their aggressive energy signatures receding. Kai's voice came through the comms, filled with wonder. Reed, what's happening? The enemy is changing. Not enemies anymore, Reed replied. Allies if we choose to accept them. In the days that followed, the transformation spread across the galaxy. Where void entities had ravaged worlds, they now helped restore them, their ability to manipulate matter between dimensions, becoming a force for reconstruction rather than destruction. The 21, as the armored humans came to be known, became the guardians of this new covenant between dimensions. The consortium expanded to include human representatives, recognizing their unique connection to both galactic history and its future. Reed often stood at observation decks, watching the strange beauty of void entities working alongside organic life forms. The armor that had once rejected every alien species had found not just a human, but humanity's purpose, not to conquer or control, but to connect. Was this always our destiny? Thorn asked him once, as they watched a former void vessel transport refugees to a healing world. Reed considered the question carefully before answering. Not destiny, choice. The Primarchs created us with potential, but what we did with that potential was entirely our own decision. The master armor hummed in agreement, its systems perfectly synchronized with Reed's consciousness. Nexus, once merely a combat system, had evolved into something more, a partner in humanity's evolution. Across the stars, the other armors responded in kind, each developing unique characteristics based on their wearers. No longer weapons of war, they had become tools of creation and understanding, bridging gaps between species just as they bridged dimensions. In the end, what made humans special wasn't their creation by the Primarchs or their genetic compatibility with ancient technology. It was their willingness to find a third option when presented with impossible choices, to transform conflict into cooperation, to see patterns where others saw only chaos. The armor had rejected every alien until it found a human. And in doing so, it had found itself as well, not defeat them alone, Nexus stated. The Primarchs fought them as a legion, and still nearly perished. Then what's the point of this armor? Reed demanded. To contain and resist, to find allies, to prepare for their eventual return. A thunderous blast interrupted their exchange, as Commander Lox fired his plasma rifle into the mass of shadows, creating a path toward Reed. Human! The amphibian commander called. This way! Reed sprinted through the opening, the armor enhancing his speed to blur past the closing shadows. Why did you come back? Professional curiosity, Lox replied, firing continuously as they retreated. No species has ever bonded with the artifact. Scientific protocol demands observation. Reed smiled, despite the dire situation. Right. Scientific protocol. They reached the edge of the excavation area, where a small consortium skimmer waited. As they boarded, Reed looked back at the writhing darkness consuming the dig site. Those things, the Void Eaters, what do they want? Lox piloted the skimmer toward the main consortium vessel. Based on what we've observed, they want your new attire. Nexus says they destroyed its creators. Legends speak of a war before recorded history, Lox confirmed. A darkness that consumed entire civilizations. Most considered it mythological. As they approached the consortium ship, Reed felt Nexus scanning the vessel. This craft has insufficient weapons to combat void entities, the armor informed him. We're not planning to fight, Reed replied. We're retreating to gather reinforcements. The skimmer docked with the larger ship, which immediately began powering its engines. Inside, the remaining expedition members watched Reed with a mixture of fear and fascination. The human stays in the cargo hold, one of the reptilian Drakari insisted. That armor is too dangerous. The armor is the only reason any of us are alive, Mira countered. And it chose him. Commander Lox raised a webbed hand for silence. The human and the artifact remain under my authority. For now, we share a common enemy. As the ship broke atmosphere, the 7 obsidian vessels pursued. The consortium craft shuddered under energy weapons fire. Shields failing, the pilot reported. We cannot outrun them. Reed stepped forward. Let me help. How? Lox demanded. Nexus has ship-to-ship combat capabilities. Neural synchronization is progressing. I can access more of its systems now. After a moment's hesitation, Lox nodded. Navigate to the weapon control station. Reed placed his armored hands on the alien console. Nexus interfaced with the ship's systems, bypassing incompatible technology with adaptive protocols. The consortium weapon systems, previously incapable of targeting the void vessels, suddenly locked on with perfect precision. Fire, Reed commanded. The ship's modest weapons blazed with amplified power, striking the lead void vessel. For the first time, their enemy showed vulnerability, its obsidian surface cracking under the enhanced assault. It's working, Mira exclaimed. Temporary advantage only, Nexus cautioned through Reed. We require greater firepower. As if in answer, space distorted ahead of them as 5 massive consortium battleships emerged from subspace, responding to Lox's emergency signal. Reed smiled beneath his helmet. I think our reinforcements have arrived. Aboard the consortium flagship, Indomitable, Reed stood uncomfortably in the center of the command chamber. 20 different alien species represented the Galactic Council's emergency session, all eyes fixed on the human and his armor. Grand Admiral Vex, a towering insectoid with iridescent wing casings, circled Reed slowly. The armor could have bonded with any species in the galaxy, yet it chose one we've never encountered. This defies probability. Unless it wasn't coincidence, suggested Council Elder Pryal, her gelatinous form pulsing with bioluminescence. The records we recovered from the excavation site require further translation. But they suggest the Primarchs seeded compatible genetic material throughout unexplored regions eons ago. Reed felt Nexus processing this information. The armor says that's correct. The Primarchs knew they might not survive the war against the Void. They preserved their genetic legacy by establishing colony worlds beyond the reach of the Void Eaters. Earth, Mira realized. Your planet could be one such colony. The revelation sent murmurs through the assembled council. The implications were staggering. Humans could be direct descendants of the legendary Primarchs, carrying genetic markers that had remained dormant for millennia. This explains much, Commander Lox noted. The armor's acceptance of you, the immediate pursuit by the Void vessels. They've been waiting, perhaps hibernating, for a compatible host to reactivate the armor. And now they've awakened, Admiral. Vex concluded grimly. 7 vessels detected near Nalthoria, but our long-range scans show energy signatures consistent with Void technology appearing throughout the sector. They're mobilizing. Reed felt cold dread settle in his stomach. I've brought this upon you, upon the entire galaxy. No, Elder Pryal countered, her translator giving her voice a metallic timbre. They would have awakened eventually. At least now we have warning, and potentially a weapon against them. Reed glanced down at his armored hands. Nexus is powerful, but it says the Primarchs fought as a legion. One suit of armor won't be enough. Perhaps not one, Admiral Vex agreed. But according to the recovered data, there may be more. Mira stepped forward, datapad in hand. The records indicate the Primarchs created 21 armors in total. Before their civilization fell, they hid the armors across the galaxy, each containing a fragment of their collective knowledge and power. Why 21? Reed asked. Unknown, Mira admitted. But they were apparently designed to work in concert, amplifying each other's capabilities when in proximity. The holographic display at the center of the command chamber activated, showing a galactic map with 21 points highlighted. We've extrapolated possible locations based on the recovered data, Admiral Vex explained. Some are in uncharted space. Others lie within territorial boundaries of species not aligned with the consortium. Reed felt Nexus's consciousness brushing against his thoughts. The armor can lead us to the others. It contains a homing instinct, like pieces of a puzzle seeking completion. Elder Priel's form rippled with excitement. Then we must split our forces. Seek these armors before the void can destroy them. And who would wear them? Commander Lox asked the question on everyone's mind. If only humans are compatible, then humans must be found, Admiral Vex concluded. Your species may be new into interstellar community, human Reed. But it seems you have inherited an ancient responsibility. Reed nodded slowly, the weight of this revelation settling over him. I need to contact Earth. They need to know what's coming. Agreed, Elder Priel said. A diplomatic vessel will be dispatched immediately. Your world must be prepared, both for the honor and the danger this connection represents. As the Council debated strategy, Reed felt Nexus processing vast amounts of information, accessing dormant systems as their neural synchronization deepened. There is more, Reed finally said, silencing the chamber. Nexus has activated additional memory clusters. The Void Eaters aren't just seeking the armors, they're seeking revenge. Revenge? Admiral Vex's antennae twitched. The Primarchs didn't just fight the Void, Reed continued, relaying Nexus's recovered memories. They created it. An experiment in dimensional engineering gone catastrophically wrong. Their greatest achievement became their destroyer. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled council. Their mythical precursors, revered throughout galactic history, had inadvertently unleashed the very darkness that now threatened to return. Then the responsibility is even greater, Elder Priel concluded. The descendants must atone for the sins of their ancestors. Reed looked around at the diverse assembly of alien species, united momentarily by a common threat. No, he said firmly. We aren't responsible for actions taken eons ago, but we are responsible for what we do now, together. 6 months passed with dizzying speed. Reed stood on the observation deck of the consortium carrier Relentless, watching as 3 more human ships docked in the massive hangar bay. Earth had responded to the crisis with remarkable adaptability, moving from shock to organized action. In record time. Still hard to believe, said Lieutenant Kai, joining Reed at the viewport. Like Reed, Kai wore Primarch armor, recovered from a gas giant's moon in the Cygnus sector. Her armor was predominantly silver with crimson accents, while Reed's had evolved to a deep blue as his neural synchronization approached 100%. Which part? Reed asked. That humans are descendants of ancient aliens? That we're compatible with super-advanced armor? Or that shadow monsters want to eat the universe? Kai laughed. All of it. 3 months ago I was piloting ore shuttles in the asteroid belt. Now I'm fighting alongside aliens against cosmic horror, Reed nodded. The rapid expansion of human involvement had been necessary but jarring. After his initial contact, Earth governments had quickly organized a response team, sending their best to meet with consortium representatives. When more armors were recovered and tested, the results confirmed what Nexus had revealed. Only humans could bond with the Primarch technology. How many now? Kai asked. 17 recovered, Reed replied. 13 successfully bonded. 4 new candidates arriving today. The Void Eaters had not been idle during these months. 11 systems had already fallen to their advance, worlds, rendered lifeless as the shadow entities consumed all organic matter. The consortium fleet, while powerful, could only slow their progress. Each recovered armor had revealed more about the Primarchs and their technology. The suits weren't merely weapons, they were repositories of knowledge, tools of creation as well as destruction. Each specialized in different functions, though all shared core combat capabilities. Reed's comm unit chimed. Admiral Vex requests, "Your presence in Strategy Command," a synthesized voice announced. "Priority Alpha," duty calls, Reed told Kai. "Meet the new arrivals. Get them oriented." Reed made his way through the massive consortium vessel, still marveling at the diversity of life forms working side by side. Species that had been rivals for centuries now cooperated against the existential threat of the void. Admiral Vex and Commander Lox were hunched over holographic displays when Reed entered. Also present was Professor Mira, who had become the foremost expert on Primarch technology. "We've located the final armor," Admiral Vex announced without preamble. "Deep, within void-controlled space." Reed examined the star chart. "That's practically suicide. Their fleets have consolidated control over that entire sector." "Which is precisely why we must attempt recovery," Commander Lox countered. "Our intelligence suggests this final armor is different from the others." Mira stepped forward. "Each armor we've recovered contained fragments of a command protocol, incomplete portions of a larger system. We believe the 21st armor contains the master control matrix. With it," Admiral Vex continued, "the armors could function as they were originally intended, as a unified system rather than individual units." Reed considered this. The 17 armors recovered had given them fighting chance, each enhancing its wearer's natural abilities and providing advanced weapons technology. Working together, the armored humans had achieved significant victories, but they were still fighting a defensive war, unable to strike at the heart of the void. "What's the plan?" Reed finally asked. "A precision strike," Admiral Vex replied. "All available armored units, supported by a joint consortium human battle group. We break through their lines, recover the final armor, and withdraw." "And the candidate to wear it?" Commander Lox gestured to a display showing a transport approaching the carrier. "Already selected. Major Thorn, Earth Special Forces, highest neural compatibility scores we've ever recorded." Reed studied the image of the stern-faced woman. Something about her reminded him of the ancient warrior statues he'd seen in Earth's museums. "When do we deploy?" 12 hours, Admiral Vex answered. "Barely enough time for preliminary bonding if we recover the armor." Reed nodded. "I'll brief the team." As he turned to leave, Mira called after him. "Reed, there's something else. Something we haven't told the others." He paused. "What is it?" "The records suggest the 21st armor isn't just a master control system," she said hesitantly. "It's a key." "A key to what?" Admiral Vex's compound eyes fixed on Reed. "To the dimension the Primarchs opened, the one that released the void in the first place." Understanding dawned. "You're planning to send the void back where it came from. It may be our only chance for total victory," Commander Lox confirmed. "Rather than fighting an endless war, we close the breach permanently." Reed considered the implications. "Does Nexus know about this?" "All the armors contain fragments of this knowledge," Mira explained, "but none has the complete picture." "And the risk to whoever wears the master armor?" The three aliens exchanged glances. "Significant," Admiral Vex admitted. "The neural load would be substantial." Reed nodded slowly. "I'll make sure Major Thorn understands what's at stake." But as he left the command center, Reed wondered if anyone truly understood. They were playing with forces that had destroyed an advanced civilization once before. History had an uncomfortable way of repeating itself. The battle raged across the Phi, void of space surrounding the dead world designated Terminus. 17 armored humans fought alongside consortium and Earth vessels against the largest concentration of void forces yet encountered. At the center of the maelstrom, Reed and Major Thorn led a small strike team toward the planetary surface. "Landing. Zone hot," reported Kai through the tactical network, linking all armored personnel. "Heavy void presence around the temple structure." Reed studied the sensor data Nexus projected into his field of vision. "Stay in formation. Remember your training." Their dropship shuddered under enemy fire as it plunged through the atmosphere. The pilot, a Drakari veteran, weaved between energy blasts with remarkable skill. 30 seconds to touchdown, the pilot announced. May your ancestors guide your path. Reed glanced at Major Thorne, her face visible through her helmet's transparent faceplate. She showed no fear, only grim determination. In the 2 days since her arrival, she had integrated with the team seamlessly, her natural leadership abilities complementing Reed's experience. You understand what we're asking of you? Reed asked her privately. Thorne nodded. Wear the master armor. Close the dimensional breach. Save the galaxy. Simple enough. Reed managed a smile. Just another day at the office. The dropship landed hard, its rear ramp descending before the engines had fully powered down. The 13 armored humans charged out, weapons blazing as void entities swarmed toward them. Form a perimeter, Thorne ordered. Reed and I will locate the armor. The temple loomed ahead, a massive structure of black stone, its architecture unlike anything recorded in Consortium archives. Not Primarch design, Reed realized, but something older. Perhaps the civilization that had preceded even them. As they fought their way up the temple steps, Reed felt Nexus becoming increasingly active, processing vast amounts of data from their surroundings. The armor recognizes this place, Reed told Thorne as they battled through shadow entities. It was here before. They all were. This is where it began, Thorne replied, her armor's weapons cutting down void creatures with practiced precision. Where the Primarchs opened the breach. They reached the temple entrance, a towering doorway carved with symbols that matched those on their armor. The doors parted at their approach, darkness beyond. The others can't hold much longer. Kai's voice came through their comms, strained with effort. Hurry! Reed and Thorne plunged into the darkness, their armor illuminated automatically, revealing a vast chamber with a single pedestal at its center. Hovering above it was the 21st armor, obsidian black with gold trim, radiating power, that made the air itself seem to warp around it. There it is, Reed breathed. As they approached, the master armor reacted to their presence, its symbols glowing in response to theirs. The chamber rumbled, walls shifting as hidden mechanisms activated. Something's happening, Thorne warned, weapon raised. From the shadows emerged a figure unlike the other void entities they had encountered, humanoid in shape, composed of swirling darkness, yet possessing definite form and intelligence. You have returned, it said, its voice like stones grinding together. After all this time, Reed felt Nexus recoil in his mind. What are you? The first, the entity replied, the one who welcomed your ancestors when they opened the way. The one who showed them wonders beyond their comprehension. And consumed their civilization, Thorne added, her weapon trained on the entity. The shadow being made a sound like laughter. They consumed themselves with greed for knowledge and power. I merely accelerated the process. We're taking the armor, Reed stated firmly. We're closing the breach. The entity circled them slowly. The breach cannot be closed. The armors were not designed for that purpose. Your ancestors created them to control us, to harness our power, not to banish us. Doubt crept into Reed's mind, but Nexus pulsed with contradiction. You're lying, he said. Am I? The entity gestured, and the chamber walls became transparent, revealing the battle outside. Their comrades were falling back, overwhelmed by shadow creatures. In orbit, ships burned. Your species was engineered for one purpose, the entity continued. To be vessels, the Primarchs created you as receptacles for their consciousness should they fall. The armors are not weapons. They are keys to unlock your genetic inheritance, Reed. Felt Nexus's agitation. What is it saying? It's claiming the Primarchs created humans as backup bodies, Thorne translated, her expression troubled, that the armors would let their consciousness take over our bodies if needed. The entity nodded. The master armor was intended to coordinate the transfer. 21 minds preserved, 21 vessels prepared. Reed's mind raced. If true, this changed everything. The armor hadn't chosen humans for their unique qualities, but because they were purposely designed to be compatible. They weren't saviors, they were spare parts. Even if that's true, Thorne said, stepping toward the master armor, we will not let the void destroy more worlds. Your choice is simple, the entity replied. Accept your true purpose. Allow the Primarchs to return through you. They alone knew how to control the void, or continue this futile resistance and watch everything you love consumed. Reed looked at Thorn, seeing his own conflict mirrored in her eyes. Then his gaze fell upon the master armor, still hovering, waiting. There's always another choice, Reed said finally. The Primarchs failed. They created both humans and the void, then couldn't control either. Maybe it's time for something new. Moving with sudden determination, Reed reached for the master armor. The entity lunged to intercept him, but Thorn fired, temporarily dispersing its form. As Reed's fingers touched the obsidian surface, the master armor responded, flowing around him like liquid metal, overlaying his existing armor. Knowledge flooded. His consciousness, truths, lies, and the space between. Reed, Thorn called, concerned by his silent stillness. When he finally spoke, his voice resonated with newfound power. The entity told a partial truth. The armors can allow the return of the Primarchs, but only with the wearer's consent. The entity reformed, darkness coalescing. You cannot hope to succeed where they failed. Perhaps not, Reed agreed. But we can learn from their mistakes. He reached out, both physically and mentally, connecting with the other armored humans across the battlefield. Through the master armor, he felt their experiences, their determination, their uniquely human perspective. The Primarchs couldn't control the void because they tried to dominate it. Reed continued, power building around him. They approached it as conquerors rather than equals. The temple chamber began to shake as energy coursed through its ancient foundations. Outside, the tide of battle shifted as the remaining armored humans found new strength, their systems synchronizing through Reed's connection. What are you doing? The entity demanded, its form wavering. Redefining the relationship, Reed answered. Not closing the breach, but changing its nature, not banishing the void, but establishing boundaries. The master armor glowed with blinding intensity as Reed channeled power through the temple's systems, the same systems the Primarchs had used to open the original breach. But where they had torn reality apart, Reed sought to mend it, creating a stable interface between dimensions.